If your mixes aren't hitting like the professional tracks that you want to sound like, this is why. Most producers spend years developing their ears, learning the tools, refining the process, but still there's a gap between the sound that they're making and the sound they're trying to reach. It's not because they lack talent, it's because they're not working with a real reference point. Every professional mix you've ever heard is built against the standard. A clear picture of where the frequency balance sits, how the dynamics move, and how loud it needs to hit, most producers don't know where to start. They just keep adjusting by feel, and they wonder why it never compares to the professionals out there. And that's exactly what Örbitone was built to solve. Örbitone is a mixing and mastering reference tool. You load your track, you choose your references, the records that define the sound that you're after, and Örbitone shows you exactly how your mix stands against them. Frequency balance, loudness, dynamics, layer by layer, with precision. Not to tell you what to do, but to show you what's actually happening, so that every decision you make from that point is informed and not guessed. Whether you're still developing your sound, deep into a mix that just won't sit right, or preparing your track for mastering, Örbitone gives you the clarity to move with intention. In this video, we're going to walk through exactly how it works. Let's get into it. So, to get started, just go to our website, orbitalaudiolabel.com, and you'll see Örbitone right up here. On the home screen, you'll find all the information you need, including the user manual down here. We'll go ahead and start analyzing. So this is your main workspace. On the left here, you have your reference tab. This is where you'll upload the tracks that you want to compare against. The middle section here is your overview. This is where all the key information will live. And on the right, that's where you'll load your own track, the one you want to measure against the reference. Let's start with the references. You can add multiple reference sets depending on the genre that you're working with or the tracks that you want to sound like. So we'll just create a test. So we'll add a few tracks that we like. You can just drag and drop them in here. Generally, the more tracks you use, the better. We recommend to use somewhere between 4 and 8 tracks to get the best idea of your reference. So this takes a little time to analyze all the tracks, but once you've done that, all the information will be stored, so you won't have to do this every time. So once they're done analyzing, you can go ahead and drag your own track to the right here. It's also good to mention that we don't upload any of your tracks to our servers or anything. It all stays locally in the browser. And here it is, everything you need in the overview tab. You'll see the loudness meters here, which shows you the perceived loudness of your references and your own track. Next to that, you have your frequency power spectrum, which shows you how your frequencies are distributed against the low, mids, and high frequencies. In the orange, you see your own track, and in the white is the references. The blue band around the references show you how much deviation there is within your references. So this means if your track falls into this blue band, you're probably good. So all the metrics you see here are color-coded, which means that if you're in the green, this means you fall within the range of your references. If it's yellow, that means you're slightly off, but if it's orange, you know you need to change something. If you want to know more about what exactly a metric tells you, you can hover over here and you get a little explanation of what it means. So for example here, spectral centroid, it means the center of mass of the spectrum, indicating the perceived brightness, so higher values mean brighter sound. Then to the right, you find your own track. If you want, you can play it and listen back to it. And below that, you find your recommendations. And these are all based on what we find in the metric section. And the nice thing is that Örbitone already gives you some guidelines on what to do to fix these issues. So for example, it reads here that my spectral roll-off is too high. So it gives me some tips on what to do to fix this. For a more visual and more precise look on how your track differs, we have the delta section. These difference bars shows you exactly the same metrics that we saw in the overview tab, but here you get a nice visual look of how far you're off or how close you are. Also, a very useful feature here is the frequency power delta graph, which shows you exactly on which frequencies you're off and by how much decibel. For example, you see here that between the 1.2 kilohertz and 3.4 kilohertz, I'm generally missing 4 to 5 decibels. It also gives you some intuitive descriptions of what that difference actually sounds like. So things like muddy or bright, or in this case dark, because we have too little high frequencies. So you're not just reading numbers, you're also understanding what the listener hears. Everything you see here is measured against your full track. But if you want to get more insight in the course of your track, we have the timeline section. The timeline section gives you insight in the course of your entire track. How things like the loudness, your stereo correlation, or your spectral centroids move from start to finish. So this can give you some insight in the exact moments in your track which might be causing issues. So for example, if your true peak peaks above 0 decibels at some point, you'll see exactly where that happens. Or if you're looking at your stereo correlation and you have one specific moment in your track where you actually go negative, you might want to take a look at that. So that's basically the functionality of Örbitone. So your mix has been telling you where it stands all this time, but now you'll be able to read it. Are you ready to get your mix up to industry standards? Head over to orbitaladioLabel.com/Örbitone and use the discount code in the description to get a 1-month free trial. We'll see you there.